traveling, we all felt it emotionally, physically, and financially. The travel industry has lost an estimated $1 trillion in revenue and counting. Over 100 million jobs have been lost. To put this in perspective, this is the entire population of Germany, plus an additional 20 million people who lost their jobs. During this pandemic, many of us are oscillating between varying emotions, fear and faith, hope and humor, tears and terror, oftentimes within the very same hour. We all know the impact. We are tired of hearing this over and over again, and it being reminded of what we've lost, especially when there isn't a very clear path in front of us for regaining most of that loss. How do we stay positive when even the optimists among us have nothing more to give? How do we metaphorically fill up when we're running on empty? I'd like to tell you a bit of my own journey as a visual storyteller. I grew up in Nigeria, a country with over 500 languages and dialects across 250 different tribes. Trying to understand culture and all its nuances and shades means a lot to me. Not only understanding, but connecting on similarities so we can live and learn side by side with respect and tolerance. Cultural understanding is at the core of my work. My own passion is to explore differences. For me, this means getting beneath culture, understanding differences, and building bridges between similarities. If you follow my work, you can see this clearly, this clear thread in all I do, from the books I write, the photos I take, and all the projects I've been working on. And the quickest way I explored this passion was to choose travel as my avenue. Now, I would like you to think of your passion as a pot of water. A stove with 4 burners of different sizes will still boil that pot of water, regardless of which burner we choose. But the largest burner will boil it quicker than the others. That is what travel does to our passions. It ignites it faster. That is why many of us are in the travel industry. Travel is my preferred avenue to express and explore my passions. But when I could no longer travel freely, the pandemic forced me to dig deeper into my why. The pandemic gave us an opportunity to reassess why we created our travel businesses in the first place and to reconnect with the source of our passions, the tap where we got the water to fill our pots. That source is your why. I want to take a moment to look at the word resilience. Resilience is often described as the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. It is often seen as a certain toughness or grit that keeps you going and going despite all odds. The point I want to make is that resilience isn't limitless. The only way we can stay resilient is to keep replenishing it from its source. We need to keep filling up in small ways every day so we have a reservoir of resilience to pull from when the time calls for it. A full pot of water is heavy. Sometimes it takes a lot more effort using both hands to pour all that hot, bubbling passion out of it. That pot is your reservoir. Maybe the pandemic is showing us that we left our pots on that travel burner for far too long without refilling it, and now our reservoirs have dried up. Maybe we've lost our true purpose along the way. We've given ourselves over to consumerism and quantity over connection and quality. Maybe the pandemic is showing us now that we need to empty our contaminated pots filled with dirty water and refill it with clean water from our individual taps, even if it means stepping away from your business for a while. Maybe this is our collective chance to start over again with clearer purpose. So how do we keep refilling our metaphoric reservoirs of water? Here are my 3 tips. First, we need to give up control and lean into curiosity. If you consider yourself a control freak, the pandemic certainly yanked that control out of your grip. Once we learn to give up control, we are able to redirect that energy to what we can actually control. And what we can control is our commitment to whatever we put our minds towards. Most of us travel because we are curious beings. That innate curiosity to see, explore, experience, and share it with others drives us to this lifestyle. We fill up our reservoirs by remaining curious. Do we suddenly become less curious just because we have to stay in one place for a while? If so, maybe it's time for us to reassess our motives for travel and to be completely honest with ourselves. Don't worry about things you can't control. Rather, be curious about the lessons you can learn from whatever situation you find yourself in, because you can take those learnings and emerge much stronger and, yes, more resilient. My second tip is this: challenge yourself to gain perspective. I want you to think of a cyclist waiting at the end of a closed road, just standing there with their bike for hours until the construction is completed. Now imagine that cyclist taking a detour that will challenge them and give them a new perspective on the surrounding terrain. Because they have gone through that challenging detour, they will appreciate the smooth road once again. These personal detours we're all currently taking will help us deeply appreciate travel more when we hit the road again. When my travel assignments dried up during the pandemic, I took a detour and came up with an idea called Local Purse that will help me serve others within our industry better. By seeking experts in other industries, I was able to see mine in a new light. By pouring into my own cup and developing new skills, it has now enhanced my ability to serve my industry. What ways can you challenge yourself so you can emerge stronger with new skills that will help you serve your customers better once the industry fully opens up again? What new skills can you learn? What behaviors can you change and adapt? What ways can you strengthen and diversify your work? Replenishing your reservoir may look like challenging and pushing yourself once more. And then my third tip is this: tap back into your community. By pouring ourselves into our communities, we also refill ourselves. Sometimes we feel empty because our work is no longer meaningful. We have let our pots dry out on the stove. What are we doing that adds value to others during this time? The most successful brands during this pandemic are the ones who have fully tapped into their humanity and transparently shown that they are indeed vulnerable. They have been successful because they have been able to remind people of their own why. As travel agents and business owners, reconnecting with your source is a blessing in disguise because it is reconnecting us to our first love, why we chose travel as our avenue, and why we invited others into this space to experience our love too. Remember I mentioned that the pandemic forced me to reconnect with my why? My why is my source, cultural understanding and connection. My passion is my reservoir, and to keep refilling it during the pandemic, I needed to go back to my why to continually fill up. That is also why during this pandemic, I launched Local Plus, which connects and supports cultural guides and local artisans in an innovative way. This initiative has given me purpose during and beyond the pandemic because it is connected to my why. So to wrap up, this is all temporary. We know our industry will rebound soon. Statistics say 2 to 4 years, but we remain hopeful. It may not be as quickly as we imagine or wish, but it will slowly simmer back to life and regain its strength. People will start exploring and standing in awe of natural wonders again. And when the tide turns, it will come back with a vengeance because we have all this pent-up passion simmering. And when travelers start moving again, they will be looking for more human connection. In essence, we'll be looking each other in the eye for confirmation and saying, did you miss all this as well? Yeah, I missed it too. And this is our collective opportunity to make sure we build our industry back in a more sustainable way. So I'll leave you with this. The question isn't whether your pot is half full or half empty. The answer you should hold on to is knowing that your pot is refillable. Find your source and go back to it to replenish yourself. We have been given this tremendous opportunity to reconnect with our purpose, our why, and for that, we should remain grateful. Thank you.
Hi everyone, it's Allison here again, coming to you from my basement. Lola is so incredible, isn't she? I'm so glad she was able to share with us today. She's a hero of mine and an icon of our industry. She's a fearless entrepreneur and someone who is always pushing the boundaries. She's given us a lot to consider today, and personally, I love this idea that each of us, we all have a pot that needs to be filled. We all need to find those sources that fuel us, recharging our souls and strengthening us for the future that lies ahead. And, to be honest, sometimes, especially after this last year, I know I felt sometimes like a wilted plant. But then an opportunity comes along, a chance to refill my pot. And when that happens, I'm re-energized and I'm ready for that next challenge. So if you would, I'd like you to follow me on a short exercise. It won't take long. Grab a scrap piece of paper, grab a pen, a marker, pencil, whatever you have on your desk, whatever's closest to you. We're going to take a stab at discovering your word. This word, and it can only be one, is the word that drives your passions, ignites your spirit, and fills that pot that Lola was talking about. It's a word that best describes you. And it's tough, I hear you. For some of us, we might already know it. It might be on the tip of our tongue. So I'm interested to see if through this exercise that changes, or if you already know. Other of us, it'll take a week or two, maybe longer. But I urge you to keep your mind open to finding it. Personally, it took me a while, and I'll tell you why in a few minutes. But once we have that word, that North Star, that constant reminder of what we stand for, that's incredibly powerful. So in each of our journeys, each of our life journeys, not just professional journeys, there's connective tissue. And this connection, it lies within the personal and professional choices we make, down to the music we listen to, or our favorite movies or books, our friendships, the projects and hobbies that we pursue. In each of these pieces of your life, there's commonality, and that's what I'd like you to explore. Each of our journeys are unique, and our words will be as well. You ready? So what's your word? I'm kidding. It's not at all that easy. So take your scrap piece of paper, and I want you to just jot down whatever comes to mind as an answer to this question. What makes you happy? Let your pen run wild. Answers could be nature, sunsets, quiet moments, challenges, family, fun. I'll give you a second. I can hear those pens scratching away. Okay. Now, take a second and look at all those items you've written down. Is there a commonality? Is there a connective tissue between those things? Think for a second what the driver of the reason that those things make you happy is. Oh, one thing before we move on. If you get to your word, or you already have it, and you're willing to share it, drop it in the chat. Okay, I'm guessing not everyone's gotten there yet. These things take time. Next question. What really upsets you? Now, As someone who's personally upset by negativity, I don't want to spend a lot of time here, but it's important to understand what upsets you and how that could lead you to your word. Sometimes understanding what we are, we can get there by understanding what we're not. For example, if loneliness upsets you, well, community might be your word. Or if neglect really upsets you, then love might be your word. It's just another way of looking at the puzzle. So let's park here for a second. Tell us, or write down, what, who, where, what gets under your skin, what really grinds your gears. I'll share. Personally, I'm upset by negativity, which I mentioned a second ago, but I'm also upset by inauthentic exchanges. You know, those times when you can tell that people aren't showing up as their true selves, that they're living their lives for social media or for praise. And this helped me get to one of my top 5 words, which is authenticity. So perhaps now you're starting to get a bit closer to your word. There's a few other questions I'd like you to ponder. What is something that you want to be reminded of to help you be your best self? Is there a virtue that you want more of in your life? Or something that you want to practice more? Peace or patience or gratitude, for example. Oh, I hope your scrap paper is a mess at this point, because that's where the magic happens. Now, one thing I'll ask, if you've already shared your word, or if you're just about ready to, I'd like to push you one step further. Let's make a collective effort to take a deep cut here. To make the most of this exercise and to come out with a word that we all need to better understand our source, our reservoir, we need to dig in. There's no benefit to selecting a word that resonates with your community or that you feel will inspire those around you or impress the crew. Your word needs to be your own. It needs to speak directly to you, something that you might wear on a bracelet or hang as a piece of artwork in your office. That constant reminder. So oftentimes when I do this with my friends, some of them will select things like success or family or money. These are excellent sentiments. I mean, they're real and they're true. But I challenge you to take a minute now and think about what characteristics you need to lean into to reach success. Or what quality would you like your family to embody? What traits, personal to you and your journey, do you need to remind yourself of or stretch yourself to practice more? This could be traits like courage, perseverance, or gratitude, for example. As I mentioned, your word is a constant. It's something that speaks specifically to you at your core, helping you identify your source, your reservoir. If you haven't come to your word yet, you will. And I hope you've narrowed it down a bit through this exercise. Before we go, I'll share mine. My final words as I whittled it down were adventure, creation, authenticity, grace, and joy. And as I asked you to, I kept going with myself, looking at what word created a deeper connection between those words, what I wish to embody. And I found my final word, which is balance. Balancing the needs of my competing priorities, the yin and yang to root down, raise my family, grow our company, and create, along with the yearning to explore, to have great adventures, discover new frontiers, meet new people. It's freeing when you arrive at your word. And I hoped I've helped you get a bit closer today. Thank you so very much for spending day 2 of AdventureFest with us, and I hope to see you all soon. Thank you.